Hello, friends, and welcome back to Stories About Entitled People. Let's kick off our video with a memorable encounter at 30,000 feet, where a Marine Corps captain settles into his seat only to be greeted by a Karen straight out of the 90s edition playbook. But before we dive in, make sure to hit that subscribe button, smash the like if you enjoy the content, and ring the notification bell so you never miss a juicy story. A Karen thought her nephew's status entitled her to direct that I give up my airline aisle seat. I was flying home from San Diego, where I was stationed as a captain in the Marine Corps, military officer with 4 to 10 years service. I had an aisle seat and was already settled in when a Karen, 90s edition, comes loudly huffing down the aisle. I briefly became religious, begging the Almighty to not have her placed next to me, but I must have committed more sin than I realized as she started eyeing my row with utter disdain. Despite these vibes, I politely stood up and asked if I could help her with her bag. With contempt oozing from every word, she replied that if she needed help, she would have asked for it. That unpleasantness out of the way, I braced for more of the same and was not disappointed. Without an ounce of graciousness, she proceeded to direct, not ask, me to swap seats with her because she was allegedly claustrophobic. I politely declined. Reflexively, with a Medusa-like stare, she glared at me and asked if I was in the service. I replied that I was, to which Karen went into a diatribe about how her nephew had just graduated from the Naval Academy and she might have to report me to him and he might have to ruin my career. She further opined that the consequences of my refusal would cost me free college and the chance to make something of myself. I politely and calmly explained I was a college graduate and officer of the Naval Service Senior in grade to her blessed nephew. I further explained how unethical and illegal it would be to try and use one's position and office to compel someone to move on a civilian flight. Unfazed, Karen went on to say that she knew her nephew was higher than me because he went to the Naval Academy. At that point, I handed her a business card and asked her to please give it to her nephew and have him contact me. A flight attendant, having overheard most of the exchange, asked the Karen if there were any troubles she needed to resolve. With a scowl, she went to work on her crossword book. The rest of the flight was uneventful, aside from her occasional muttering under her breath and performing deep breathing exercises to manage her claustrophobia. I did see her fill out a survey card giving all zeros without reading the questions. Never heard from the nephew. Hopefully he set her straight. My son just commissioned as a second lieutenant in the Army. Why don't you come over and mow my lawn? That's how this works, right? And our second story. And our next story. Work within time frames? Yes, sir. Back in the before years of 2009, I was an enlisted clerk in the Air Force. I was working in the unit's orderly room/mail room, the main administrative area, as the only full-time worker and the temporary supervisor. I generally got along with everyone, and if you were polite, I would go above and beyond to help you. One day, an officer, middle management in the part of the organization, got cranky at me because a document he wanted was late. It was late getting to him because his boss took ages to sign it. It was well within the actual deadlines, but not within the time frame these documents usually take. He confronted me in the open, planned office saying, "What the hell were you doing all this time? Obviously, this is time sensitive. Are you really that crap at your job that you can't get things done in their time frames?" I apologized, started to point out who the document was with, only to be cut off. "Just get things done on time. Don't be so effing stupid, you bleeping bleep." As an aside, I was only publicly out for about 6 months at that time, and the bleeps were extremely homophobic. I was still in the phase of trying to prove that I was a strong, independent person who didn't need no HR to fight my battles. If this happened today, I would report him and watch him drown in HR BS. At this point, the entire floor was rather quiet. I apologized again and said, "Don't worry, sir, it won't happen again." You see, one thing he didn't know is that I was usually getting everything done weeks, if not months, faster than the actual deadlines. Another thing he didn't know is just how petty and malicious I can be, especially when insulted. So I made sure that everything going to squadron leader, bleeping bleep, as he'll be called from here, was done exactly to the time frames they needed to be processed in. What this effectively did was make sure that absolutely no paperwork made its way to his desk for the next few weeks. He did come around every now and then to check in on some paperwork, and I always said the same thing. I'm tracking the progress of that, and it has X number of weeks left to be processed. As such, it's not a priority right now. Another quick aside, my boss knew what happened and was fully on board with what I was doing. At one point, when I was out on the mail run delivering paperwork to all his coworkers, I overheard this snippet of conversation. Nice, officer. Man, your work has been rather quiet lately. What's happening? Squadron leader bleeping bleep. I don't know. Every time I follow something up, he just says that it's not a priority right now. Nice, officer. Wait, really? But OP gets things done instantly. Oh, wait, you were talking to OP a couple weeks ago. Squadron leader bleeping bleep. Well? Nice, officer. Oh, man, you done effed up. Unfortunately, I had to move on at this point, so I couldn't overhear anymore. About a week after that, squadron leader bleeping bleep came around to follow up on something else, and I gave him the usual response. He then did something I wasn't expecting. He apologized to me. He said that he was sorry for how he treated me and that he'd realized that he might have been out of line. At this point, I said, apology accepted. But before you go, and started pulling out paperwork from my tray, handing it to him one at a time. This is all good to go. You just need to sign. This needs a decision and sent to either A or B, depending on the choice. This needs... Well, you get the idea. His eyes went wide upon seeing the stack of paperwork. The last thing he didn't realize about me, I take my job seriously. Just because he was being an a-hole didn't mean I was going to make the rest of the office suffer. I had several officers higher up on the ladder than squadron leader bleeping bleep come and congratulate me throughout the rest of the week for how I handled the situation. Apparently, everyone heard what he said, and they were all willing to back me up with HR if I went that way. They were even more willing to throw squadron leader bleeping bleep out of the metaphorical plane without a parachute when they realized what I was actually doing. The fallout, if you can call it that, squadron leader bleeping bleep treated me exceptionally nicely after that, even though I wasn't a fan of him for the rest of the time I knew him, as did all the officers in the office, including the new staff. The incident did help my reputation for years afterwards and opened up a few doors which eventually led to me meeting my husband. So I guess I came out the winner in the end. And our last story. Try to steal my car? Enjoy losing your partnership? I was young and had my little hand-me-down Acura Integra since I was 16. My parents let me borrow it, and I paid for everything, repairs, insurance, gas, etc. When I graduated high school, it was my graduation present. I'd actually paid about $1,000 to them to cover insurance for a long-term time, not long before they dropped having me pay for insurance because neither my sister nor stepsister were paying for theirs. My stepdad was a mechanic and specialized in cars made for racing and car shows. He and his boss had had their vehicles featured in car magazines that were sold internationally. He took care of the repairs for it, and I paid for parts. When I got to be around 23 or 24, I had moved pretty far away, so obviously my stepdad wasn't taking care of the repairs anymore, but I did know some basic things. I was driving down the road when suddenly smoke or steam came pouring out from under the hood. I panicked, but pulled over as safely as I could and quickly contacted AAA. They sent someone to tow the car to their garage to get it repaired. I get to the garage after I finally get a ride, since they wouldn't let me ride in their truck. They tell me the mechanic is looking at it now. I wait a bit, and then the guy comes out. He looks concerned and then lays it on me. Well, your whole radiator blew. It'll cost about $2,000 or so to have it replaced. I began to panic because that was worth more than the car was. Then, with a slight smirk, he says, I tell you what, I'll pay you $2,000 and just take it off your hands for you, since its repairs are worth more than the car itself. Alarm bells went off immediately. This guy was obviously trying to scam me and take my car. Now I'm pissed. I don't let it show, though, and say I have to make some phone calls. I step outside and walk around and peek into the garage bay. The guy steps back into the garage and goes to his bench and starts chatting with the other mechanic. He's grinning up a storm, and plastered all over his workbench are photos of modified cars. One of the photos happens to be my stepdad's boss's car, which is a bright yellow Acura Integra and hard to miss. This was the one at the front, and it all clicked into place. I called my stepdad and asked him about how likely it was that the radiator had completely blown. He said it was highly unlikely, but not impossible. I explained everything to him, and he told me, do not sell that car. He's trying to get it because he wants to kit it out. Ask if he can show you exactly in the engine where the problems were. If he shows you, he might be legit, but take photos and send them to me so I can be sure. If he refuses or attempts to distract you and dissuade you, he's lying, and get it towed to another shop right away. Do not let them do anything until after I verify. I hung up and put back on my distraught face, making my way back into the office. I asked the manager if the mechanic could show me exactly where the problem was. The manager went and got the mechanic, and wouldn't you know it, he absolutely refused to show me, saying I wouldn't know what I was looking at and there was no point because it was completely busted, and any other excuse he could. I told them, please do not make my repairs. I'm going to have it towed to another shop. They got angry and tried to dissuade me again, but I wouldn't budge. I called AAA to see if they would cover having it towed to a different location. They said no, that it had already been taken to a AAA garage, so any other towing would be on me. I arranged my own tow and had them tow it to a shop right next to where I was living that had the best reviews in town. The reviews all made a point of saying they never tried to get people to do unnecessary repairs and often did their best to save people money. One even said they'd taken it to a different place and they tried to get them to do a bunch of stuff before being brought there and told most of it was completely unnecessary. After I had it towed there, I got a call from AAA again. They wanted to know why I was having it towed to a different shop, as it seemed very odd and they were following up on that request. I told them everything. The lady was silent for most of my story. She asked me, do they have AAA logos on their vehicles? I confirmed that they didn't have just one, but no less than 6 AAA logos on each tow vehicle they had, and was prominently displayed on their website, and pictures of the trucks were on there too. She stayed silent for a while and said she'd call me back again before hanging up. The other shop looked over my car and everyone was super kind and friendly. The mechanic came and got me from the waiting room and took me back to the shop. He pointed into the engine. See that hose there? It's the factory hose. It's over 20 years old. It ruptured because it's too old. I'm surprised it lasted this long. I asked about the whole radiator being blown and he looked at me like I'd grown several heads. What? No. Of course not. I even tested it. It was fine, even well beyond its labeled rating. Whoever told you that was lying their butt off. We went back into the office and I explained everything to them and they looked at me horrified. Again, the mechanic interjected, what an a-hole. How dare he lie and try to steal your car like that? What's the shop's name so I can make sure no one I know ever goes there? Trying to say it'll cost $2,000 to repair when it just needs a $20 hose replacement. They fixed up my car, and after I got it home, I got a call. It was AAA again, and the lady asked if I had any updates. Boy, did I fill her in. I didn't leave anything out. Everything the mechanic had said, the discrepancy in the repair cost, the actual repair required. She was silent, but I could hear her fingers madly typing away. Once I was done, she said, I'm so sorry for what happened. We take these things very seriously. Don't worry, they won't get away with this. A week later, I checked on that shop. All the AAA logos were gone, and they were no longer listed as being a AAA-approved business. Your stepdad is very wise. Always get photographic proof, if possible. Try to get everything in writing, and always get at least a second opinion, if not a third or fourth, before you do anything. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.